Hello, my friends. We meet again. I wish we could meet under more fortunate circumstances, but we are brought together today in this little life to revisit a little life. Exactly 1 year from the day that I'm posting this, I posted my first ever book-related content. It was a reading vlog for A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and I thought in honor of this little anniversary, I would revisit this story. Also, I would just like to mention, a year ago, my channel had 28 subscribers. I'm now sitting at 145, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that many, but to have grown that much over 1 year is significant to me. But yes, that is what this reading vlog is gonna be. And I will say, since I did already read it, I already know I like it. I do plan on annotating this time. This video will obviously be full spoilers. I'm just going all into this book, so if you haven't read it or you don't want to hear what goes on, then maybe skip this video. Of course, check the trigger warnings. This is kind of one of the more well-known, super sad, super tragic books. Emotionally devastating, so be careful with yourselves. I'm excited to see this through a more experienced lens because now I have a whole year of reading, whereas when I read this the first time, I was kind of first getting back into reading. I hadn't for a couple of years at that point, so I'm hoping I can get something new out of this. And also, I'm very excited because we're going to New York in, I think, 2 weeks. It'll just be really fun to read about a place and then to visit that place. I will probably post a vlog when we go there. It's just for like one night, but still exciting, still a cool time. I'm so excited. I think before anything else, we need to just pick our annotating tools, get ourselves reacquainted with the format of this book, and then we will jump into reading it. Hello friends, and welcome to the annotation station. I don't really have any definite plans for what I want to do with this book. I've seen a lot of versions on TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, different ways that people annotate, different tabs that they use. I think this one is by far the most popular one that I've seen, so we will be vaguely taking inspiration from them. So this is my copy of A Little Life, obviously. 814 pages of absolute trauma, but written in a way that really connects you to the characters. For this, as well as all of my annotations, I definitely like to use just a regular pencil. I'm not the biggest fan of using mechanical pencils to annotate just because they're a lot sharper. They leave indents in the pages that can be frustrating if you're trying to erase. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to use this, but I did with my nonfiction. I used pen to mark any words that I didn't understand or wanted to define for myself. But I've also been considering fully annotating in pen just because I get stressed that the pencil is going to fade over time. It would feel like it matters if I used pen. And of course, we're going to need some tabs. I have two neutral sets of tabs that I'm considering using. I either have these pastel colors, which clearly does not really go with this book, seeing as it is entirely black and white. Obviously, we're basing this all off of the cover, which brings me to these more neutral tabs. But I will say they will be a little bit frustrating to use. The words are not very indented along the side, which means that the tabs will probably overlap with the words. Not a huge deal, but something that does bother me sometimes. With all that being said, let's get to reading. It is Friday, March 10th at 10:56 a.m. Today's drink of choice is a grande iced matcha, soy milk, light ice, and 2 pumps of raspberry, in this very fun cup that has a circular top but a triangle bottom. Last night's reading plans were interrupted by the fact that I had to get up at 8 a.m. to take my guinea pig to the vet. Went to bed at like 1, woke up at like 7. She's fine, by the way. And then I had to go say goodbye to one of my favorite shifts at work who is going to a different store. So it's been an eventful morning, and it's not even 11. But now we're here, we've got our fun drink, and we've got this book. I didn't actually make my annotation key in the front of this just yet because, especially when I have a lot of tabs going on, I'd rather keep a note of all the times that I potentially want to tab something, and I'll keep note of here are all the quotes, here are all the character moments, and then at the end I'll go back through and annotate, just because I don't want to start tabbing something that barely comes up. Did I say Happy Mario Day? Happy Mario Day. I'm gonna get settled in, and then we're gonna get right into it. It's the way I finished the Half-Blood Prince last night. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. The 11th apartment had only one closet, but it did have a sliding glass door that opened onto a small balcony from which you could see a man sitting across the way, outdoors in only a t-shirt and shorts even though it was October, smoking. Willem held up a hand in greeting to him, but the man didn't wave back. I'm only 10 pages in. I forgot how much I love this friend group. It is so comforting to revisit them. It's interesting because normally when I reread books, it feels like a chore, it feels like a task, because you already know a lot of the big points, so it feels like you're just waiting for things to happen. Maybe it's just the fact that I haven't overly thought about this book, I haven't completely worn it out, or maybe just that these characters are written so well, but I'm excited to reintroduce myself to each part of their lives. My good friends, I am so sorry I have not updated you. It is currently 7:30 p.m. The sun is down and I have not made very much progress. I'm on page 66 right now, but I promise there's a good reason. I read for a little bit, I came upstairs, and I spent 3 hours recording for my main channel where I do music stuff.
Recipes on the kitchen counter, written by the ones now stuck 6 feet under. But time to time, they visit me on the bus.
Go give it some love if you want to. I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers on that channel. It's so cool to think that. But I spent the rest of the daylight working on that, so now we can get back to this. Just thought I'd update you so it doesn't look like I'm 60 pages in after reading for 6 hours. I just got to page 84, which is a little bit after the first sad Jude incident happens. I did say this video is going to have spoilers, but I don't think we need to get into the details of what happens. If you know this book, you can probably figure it out. And when I read this book the first time, it didn't make me cry. I feel like I was very disconnected from it while I was reading, but this time, barely anything with Jude has happened yet. This is the first time you're finding out something specific about Jude, even though it's still not from his perspective, but you're learning in more detail something about his life. And it's just making me so much more sad, and I don't know if it's because I made a sad playlist on Spotify to go along with the vibes of this book, because normally I'll just add somebody else's playlist, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to make my own, or if it's because I already know where the story is going, and then because of that it's sadder because I know where it's gonna go, or it could just be that a year has passed since the first time I read this, so I relate to him in different ways. This reread is making me significantly more sad, and we still have a long way to go. And I know I said I didn't want to use all, that example picture had 8 different types of tabs. I know I said I didn't want to use all of them because it seems like a lot and it seems like it would maybe take me out of the reading experience. The more I think about it, the more I think it would be kind of fun to just go all out with the annotations. It would be really fun to have the whole book just completely packed with tabs. I don't know how much of this I can get through, just because we are waking up at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I don't want to stay up too late, but I also really want to get through this book. I'm just about at the end of Lisbonard Street, which is the first out of 7 sections, so maybe I'll catch up with you when I finish The Postman, which is the second section. Cool. Sounds like a plan. It's currently 12:20 a.m. on March 12th, and I just finished section 2, The Postman. The entire section was about Jude. You get a little bit more into his backstory, and you also start moving through their lives because you start off when they're in college, when they're meeting and they're friends, but this book travels through the main characters' entire lives, really. It goes until they're way older. Also, my apologies for the questionable lighting, angle, etc. Kaylin is currently asleep in my bed, and I don't want to mess with all that. I forgot how quickly this gets into Jude's perspective, because the first time it feels like forever until you get to learn something about him, but there's still all this left in the book. It feels like so much has already happened, so it's wild to think about how much more can happen in the rest of this. Again, I will say be very careful when you're reading this book, just because Jude has a lot of insecurities, he's got a lot of stuff going on in his head, and when you read this, it can be kind of easy to incorporate his insecurities into your real life, so just something to be cautious about. And that would not be a very fun thing to adopt from this book. I honestly don't know when this video is going to go up, because I wanted to post it today, March 12th, which is exactly 1 year since the time I posted this video the first time, but that means I have to read another 600 pages within the next 24 hours, which yes is possible, but very much does not seem like a fun time. I'm probably not going to update again tonight just because I don't want to wake Kaylin up or anything like that, so I'm just going to see how far I can get through this, and then I'll catch up with you guys in the morning. Good morning, guys. It is 10:56 a.m. on March 12th, which means I have less than 12 hours to post this video. Really quickly, some things that I wrote down that I just didn't get to talking about last night. I think in the first video, I said that it would have been more of a trauma thing if Harold, the guy that adopts Jude, had ended up also abusing him or taking advantage of him in some way. I don't remember my exact wording, but I would like to make it clear that I didn't want that to happen. I wasn't like looking forward to reading something like that. That's not what I meant. I just meant with how much people were hyping it up as trauma, I thought that would be the direction that it took, but instead it's just the story of somebody who's living a very unfortunate life, and that's just how it is sometimes. But I definitely don't think that would have been a better way to take this story. I also wrote down that I appreciate Jude's school talk, his whole education. Really smart character, right? He's like a big law guy. Yeah, big law guy, that's the official job title. But I didn't realize that he is so much more than just the trauma that he goes through. And when people talk about this book, they really only address how sad his life is. But there are large sections of this book that are dedicated to talking about how good he is at his job. And I wish that would be acknowledged more because he's still a person, you know? He still does things in life. People act like this entire book is just focused on the sad parts, but there's so much that goes on in this book. There's so much with friendships and with their lives in general. It's definitely not just the sad parts. I think the main thing that adds a book to my favorite shelf is just, does it have a big group of friends that are well developed? You probably get the perspective of multiple people because you're really able to feel how they all connect to each other. Both this book and It by Stephen King are really focused on a group of friends who are trying to stick together even though life sucks. I just really love well-established friend groups. That's probably my favorite thing to read about. My only complaint is that this keeps reminding me of It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, because Jude met a guy who owns the apartment building and offered to sell one of the floors to him, and also he was looking a little ominously at the staircase. I infinitely prefer this version. I am determined to get through at least a majority of this book today. Even if I don't finish it, I would still like to post this video today. I made it through Vanities. I'm on the Axiom of Quality. Started the day on page 295, so we're gonna see how much I can get through. Let's get back to it. I haven't gotten very far, but I had a thought. I just think this book is so easy to relate to. That sounds quite concerning. I don't mean relate to it because you have the same experiences as the characters. They don't have the greatest experiences. I just mean that this book touches on race and class and gender, religion, sexuality. It kind of covers everything. Each of the characters have their own struggles, and maybe you can't relate to the level of trauma that some of these characters are going through. They are kind of elevated versions of what people regularly experience. And it's really easy when you're reading to categorize them in your brain as just being certain things. For example, JB, you see him and you see how he progresses and you automatically think that he's just a bad friend, that he did bad things and he does a lot of drugs and he doesn't really care about anybody. And upon reread, you can see that he never really cared that much about what his friends were doing, but it was never with malicious intent. Obviously, he does things that are inexcusable, but especially with the reread, it all has so much more context because I'm paying attention to here's their life circumstances and here's how they're reacting and here's how their friends are interpreting. He feels like he was abandoned by them. He feels like he is the outlier. So when he's doing these mean things, it's not because he doesn't like his friends. It's not because he wants to be mean to his friends. It's because he feels misunderstood. He feels left out. And because it does all of that, you're able to relate to the characters even if it's just in a minor way. It's 2 p.m. and I just reached section 5, The Happy Years. The 4th section is entirely talking about Jude's trauma, both past and present. You learn how terribly he was treated and how terribly he is currently being treated. And you can also see more clearly what lengths other people will go to be there for him. His friends and his family will completely drop everything if it means supporting him. I've gotten to page 480 out of 814, but I think it is extremely unlikely that I will finish this book tonight, so I think what I might do instead, I will get as far as I can. Maybe I'll annotate in this one, put the tabs and everything, and I'll wrap it up in my weekend reading vlog that I'm actively recording at the same time as I'm doing this video. So this should be going up on Sunday because that's what I really wanted to do, is post this on the 1-year anniversary, and I'd rather do that than finish the book and post it late. Nobody's asking for this, it's just for fun, so I'll do what I can. It's my channel, I make the rules. Hello.
I go see terrestrial. She's stretching out her sore shoulders. She feels like a space cadet.
That's bright. Hello, it is 10 p.m. on Sunday, March 12th, and I did not finish A Little Life. I did start tabbing, as you saw, and I've never done this many colors in a book, but I really enjoyed doing it. I don't think it's something I want to do for all of my books, just because it is a lot to look at, but I think it's fun to do occasionally as a little treat, especially for books that I'm rereading or just my favorite books to make them look more my own. I did want to finish reading this book for this video because it is entirely dedicated to reading this book. That's kind of the whole point, but I wanted to post it today. I wanted to post it as a little anniversary for my first ever proper book video, and it's just not worth it to me to suffer through the last bit of this to try and get it into a video. I would much rather post on the day. The video quality would suffer, and overall I wouldn't have as much of a fun time reading it, so I am posting a reading vlog on Wednesday where I will probably be wrapping up Harry Potter, but I will also have a full section where I go over the rest of this. So if you want to see if my final thoughts have changed, it'll be in that video. Do I still think it's a 5-star book? Obviously, I haven't finished, but as of right now, yes, absolutely. The friend group is so well established, and I cherish every second that I get to spend with them. They all care about each other so much, and even though there is a lot of bad going on in their lives, it is so comforting to read about all the good. I will say it is even more sad when you're rereading it because you vaguely know the bad things that are gonna happen. You remember some of the details. You can sort of catch things that happen earlier in their lives that will influence the big events later on. I always feel so sad when I'm rereading things because I just want things to stay how they are. I don't want things to get worse. It's the same thing with Maze Runner and those types of books. I get so sad that the world just has to keep going because you know bad things are gonna happen. I will say I don't believe this book is trauma just for the sake of trauma. It's just some characters that are having experiences, and that's it. Jude does have a more unfortunate life, but I don't think it's really unrealistic. Trauma and mental illness can very much have a domino effect where because you have one thing happen earlier in your life, the rest of your life slowly spirals, and it's really hard to catch up and to get ahead and to maybe improve yourself. You're constantly going to be held back by the things that you experience, and especially when it's as much as Jude went through. That is a very hard cycle to break out of. So I don't think it's unrealistic. I don't think it's just a bunch of bad things happening for no reason. I think it does make sense. It feels realistic for what had already happened. I think this book is pretty good representation for mental illness or chronic physical illness, whatever it is. People dealing with disabilities where you can just see how detrimental it is. You can see how it's slowly building up and all of these little issues are coming together. And when you're slowly being broken down by all of these different things, it makes every single challenge that much harder. And I think this book presents that in a way that is, again, fairly realistic. These characters are really doing their best and life is just knocking them down. When people talk about this book, they really only talk about the trauma, but there's so much more to these characters. They're all given lives outside of just the bad things that happen to them, and I wish that was talked about more. They're friends outside of this 4-person friend group, and their school accomplishments and their job accomplishments. It feels like that's all brushed aside when people talk about this book, but it's such a big thing when you're actually reading the story. I will say, this is a book that I definitely carry with me in my head. It could just be because I'm actively rereading it, and then once I move past it, I'll kind of move out of the story. But I'm pretty sure the same thing happened last time, wherein maybe the week after reading this book, I just have Jude's inner monologue just like in the back of my head. He comfortably sits there for at least a week, which again is why you have to be really careful when you're reading this book, because if you're not mentally in a place where you can handle that, it's a lot, you know? But this author is really good at creating characters that are gonna stick with you whether you like it or not. So if you're able to handle that, I think it's really interesting to see how much each of these characters are individuals. But also sometimes this book is a lot to handle because, for example, at work today, we called the police on somebody for some reason, whatever, it doesn't matter, but that person was hiding in the bathroom and everybody was making jokes about it, but I thought they were gonna go in there and pull a brother Luke, and I was not ready for that. So there are definitely some more stressful parts of this book that have stuck with me, but it's okay. These things happen. Anyways, I desperately need to go to bed. I did my best, and tonight I'm choosing kindness. If you like this video and you want to see more of my face, you can subscribe to this channel, or my main channel, Riverbend, where I post music content. Also my Instagram, Spotify, Goodreads, Storygraph, they will all be linked in the description for you. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna go to bed. Bye.